Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Built by Sabz. Today we're going to be building a arched backdrop. So it's actually a rectangle backdrop with an arched center. The tools that I'm using today, jigsaw, a nailer. This is pneumatic, but you can have any type of nailer. I'm using 25mm 18 gauge nails. I'm also using a circular saw, roofing square, a saw guide for the saw so we can cut straight lines, tape measure, a string line, obviously your pencil and your PPE. Oh, and a level. What we're going to do is grab our tape from the bottom. I'm going to measure up 2 meters, put a line, 2 meters, just like that. The overall width is 1100, so 1.1 meters. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark on that line that we just made, 1100. So we're going 1100 to here, and we're going 1100 here. Draw a line. Now we're going to cut the top off. All right, guys, so now we've cut the overall height and width. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the center arch. Now, the way we're going to do this is you have to work out how wide you want both pillars. And we have worked that out because we've worked out the center is 800. So that means there's 300 left over. So therefore it's 150 and 150, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to mark 150, 150 and draw some lines. So 150, 150, 150 and 150. We need to divide 800 by 2, right? So to get the center line, so that's 400. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 400 plus 150 equals 550, right? Same thing over here. If we're going off this edge here, it's 150 plus 400 gives us 550, right? Exactly the same center marks. We're going to draw just a light line, all right? Now, this is where we're going to screw a screw in here. Now, we want to go from this mark down 400. So 400, I'm doing it off the 200 mark, so that's 600, okay? So this, where we put the screw. All right, grab our string line. And let's confirm if we've put the screw in the correct position. So just with our finger, we don't need to put a mark, just with our finger. Look at that, falls right on the line, okay? If I go around here, I'll show you. Falls right on the line. Okay, so now that we've done that, you can either use your circular saw, run it up the straight line till you get there, and then you're going to jigsaw the rest all the way around. Or the other option is you can just use the jigsaw and follow the line straight away. I'm just, to speed it up, I'm going to use the circular saw to here, and then I'm going to jigsaw the rest. All right, let's go. Now it's time to jigsaw the arch. And there we have it, guys. There is our first arch. All right, guys, now that we've cut out the first piece, we need to cut out a second piece because it's a 3D arch. So now that we've got our first piece, what we need to do is take it off, grab another sheet, put it down, put this one back on top and trace around it. Essentially just mark around it, trace around it, and cut it out exactly the same as what we just showed you. And then you are ready for the next stage. Now what we're going to do is we're going to build some ribs on the inside, which is going to sit the internal piece of timber that's going to be rounded. I'm using just an offcut of timber. It's 15mm. You can use 12mm. You can use 9mm if you wanted to, but I had this laying around, so I'm going to use this. And we're going to cut the internal dimension, or the internal width of the actual arch. You remember the offcuts that we cut? These pieces, we're going to utilize them so we don't have any wastage of timber. And these pieces are 113, 114 mil, give or take, right? You have the arch. This is going to sit internally, and then the other arch is going to sit on top. And overall, it's going to be 132 millimeters. We're going to measure, and we're going to dock 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably 9. I'd say 9 of them. And we'll place them around. So we only need to do a couple up the leg, but a few more around where the arch is. Because as we nail off the plywood, which is a bendy plywood, I'll show you that shortly, we need good fixing points all the way around the arch. So let's dock these down and we'll start gluing and nailing them in. Always keep your hands well away from the blade, like back here, and don't start the saw up against the timber because it could bite back and come back at you. So pull it back a little bit, start the saw, and then finish cutting. One. If you don't know how to use a drop saw, I'll be doing a video on how to use a drop saw, so stay tuned for that if I haven't already put it up. And there you go. Okay, so now that we've cut the ribs, the aim is now to put them up against the inner edge. We're going to glue them, and then once the glue's sort of hardened, then we're going to tack nails into them. What we're using for glue is liquid nails, good old liquid nails. It's hard as any real liquid nails, PVA glue, any type of wood glue will do, but I'm using liquid nails. All right, guys, now that we've glued all of our uprights in, I've let them sit for a little bit because they're not nailed, so they're just screwed. So you want the glue to harden a little bit before you then grab your next piece and sit it on top. Now, it's best to get a second pair of hands to help you with this, but I'm doing this by myself, so I'm going to show you how I do it. But before we do that, we're going to put some glue on the uprights all the way around. I would put the sides on as well, but I'm not doing that yet because I'm going to put these on and just get a nail in them. There's a little bit of flex in the edges that you can then slip in your piece. The attempt to get it on without moving them. I'm going to sit this up against this side to get this on. Like that. So now we're going to use our straight edge to ensure that we're straight on the inside, because the inside's the most important part. So you want to ensure that this is all good. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking really good. Once you've got it lined up, just slap it down. Get our nailer, 25mm brad nails. The next part we're doing is we're putting our piece in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to feed it in there and we're going to nail it down. We're going to scrape all this glue off anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I just want to get it lined up. I've smudged it so I can see. And we're looking pretty good. This is getting painted, right? So I wouldn't be too concerned if you got it spot on flush, because you've got to sand it anyway. All right, guys, now that that's all tacked in, I've flipped it around and tacked the rest of it, and that's now good to go. A bit of advice, when you're tacking it, when we did the top and the bottom wasn't tacked, what I did was, instead of flipping it straight away, I slid it out so I could reach the bottom, and I went in and I tacked while it was still this way up. Same on the other side. Once I had finished this side, I moved it over that side, overhung that side and did the same. And what that allows it to do is you won't be able to flip it without dislodging, or, you don't want to move any of the uprights. So essentially the best thing to do is to tack either side, and then you can pick it up like that, flip it over and tack the rest of the uprights. Here we are, guys. This is the bendable plywood. It's 3 or 4mm thick and it bends. Look how good that is. So we're going to cut the strip, same of the width, which is 131. Oh, it's 132. It's not 130, 132. So we're going to rip this down to 132 and we're going to feed it all the way around and tack it off, all right? Let's go. Now this will obviously bend as soon as you cut it, so it's best to hold it up. And there's our piece. And there's our two pieces, done. All right, now that we've done this, we've cut them out. I've put it face down, so the front is face down because it's a hard surface, and when you put this down and you nail it in, it's going to be flush with the face. Glue all the uprights. We'll set our first point up, and let's start nailing. And we're going to nail across as we do it. All right, guys, once you've tacked it all down, then you're pretty much set. That is the prop. We have built an arch prop. Next thing we have to do is we have to paint it. So we've got to prepare it for paint. We've got to smooth out all these edges, bog up all these holes, and sand it all back and get it ready for paint. So I'm going to do that in another episode, but for the most part, this is how you build a round arch. All right. So stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you next time on Built by Sabz. Peace.